Speedway Report is a production of ZTV. Well, the Snowball Derby is once again in our rearview mirror. Formula One had an intense race. The bump and run discussion is here to stay. We've got all this and more coming up. Welcome to Speedway Report for Monday, December the 7th, 2020. From the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina, I'm Patrick Reynolds, and thanks for joining the fastest half hour in racing. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel yet? Not only can you get it on Facebook and other forms of social media, but you can have us dropped right into your mailbox every week. A good friend, Leo, watches us down in Brazil every week, so if he can do it, hey, so can you. Love to have you on board. Check us out on YouTube. Jump right now to the Speedway Report Victory Lane Lap. Oh, gosh. First full weekend in December. Oh, plenty of racing and plenty to talk about. Let's talk about Formula One first. In Bahrain, your winner was Sergio Perez. Yes, Sergio Perez won the Formula One race. So much more to talk about than just Perez's great drive and great win. Lots of stories. If you didn't catch this race Sunday afternoon, fantastic show. Not your usual Mercedes 1-2 follow the leader. A lot was happening. Also, in Pensacola, Florida, it was the annual Snowball Derby week. Let's bring you back to last week and tell you who won what on Thursday night. The Pro Trucks were won by Grant Thompson. The Sportsman Cars by James Patrick and Pure Stocks by Darrell McDonald. Friday night, the Modifieds held their big race with Derek Griffin, your winner. Saturday, action revved up as the momentum built for the Derby on Sunday. Outlaw Stocks were taken by J.J. Day. And the Pro Late Models held their big Snowflake 100. Jake Johnson was your winner, and he came from 31st starting position, also the winner earlier in the afternoon of the Last Chance qualifier. How did that happen? That's going to take up a lot of tonight's discussion. We'll get to that shortly. And yesterday afternoon, the annual Snowball Derby for super late models, 300 laps, first-time winner in Ty Majeski. Now, the Snowball Derby, you really look for a good race every year, which we always get. It's a great surface. In the NASCAR ranks, it's compared to Rockingham and Darlington. The cheese grater. Yeah, the cheese grater just tears up the tires, and that usually makes for a good race. And Paul McKeever, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Bill McCurdy, hey, how are you? Thanks you guys for jumping in tonight. The great finish yesterday. No controversy. Ty Majeski outdueled Derek Thorne in a late race restart. Great racing. That doesn't make the headlines. I wish it did, but it was so overshadowed by Saturday's Snowflake 100. This was good racing. This should be celebrated. And it is, because I'm going to lead with it. But where's the discussion on this one? All took place on Saturday night in the Snowflake 100. Here we are in the final lap. Bubba Pollard leading the Snowflake 100 for Pro Late Models, and Stephen Nasse running second. They roll into turn 3. The white flag has waved. They're coming to the checkered. Nasse puts the bumper to Pollard, moves him up out of the way. Pollard comes back down, hits Nasse, spins, and around we go. Big pile up behind him. Nasse takes the checkered flag first. Yes, in victory lane, he is penalized to final car on the lead lap. Literally, as they're taking photos, the trophies are being presented, and the smile just dissolves from his face. His shoulders shrug over as it would. That is how Jake Johnson, your second place guy across the checkered flag, he gets elevated to the winning position of the Snowflake 100. What happened here? Well, Nasse shoved Pollard out of the way, and the officials ruled this is dirty driving. And immediately on social media, boom, we've got our bump and run argument, discussion, debate. Half of the crowd really seems to think that the bump and run is not bad. That's part of racing, as they call it. The other half, older school, remembers the days of etiquette, of character, and how we raced. My take on it, well, I'm going to give my take, but a great discussion developed on our Facebook page yesterday. And I'm going to give the credit to our listeners and our audience for providing a lot of perspective on this thing. I'm not a favor of the bump and run. I think it's a candy-ass move. It's no way to win a race. I'm not impressed with it. I think it takes zero talent to run into the car in front of you and move them out of the way. Then we've got the crowd that argues that point, that like to quote Days of Thunder of rubbin' is racing, which is a bad line from a bad movie. Racing is not rubbin', racing is racing. Yeah, paint gets traded, bumpers bump. There's dings in the car. Shoving a guy out of the way, bump and run, candy ass. Always has been, always will be in my mind. For some reason, I don't know how this ever got acceptable, as some people were complaining, what, is the bump and run illegal now? No, it should have always been illegal. It is in my mind. It's never has been an acceptable way to race. But let's jump to here as I pull the screen up here of the Speedway Report Facebook page. And some of our listeners provided some excellent commentary on this as well. We'll start with Ernie Saxton, who is a great public relations man for the short track auto racing world, as well as announcer at Grandview Speedway. Well, he's kind of semi-retired now, but once racing's in your blood, you don't really leave. As Saxton said, I'll quote him, "I have always liked to see winning moves made cleanly, no contact." I agree. However, as an announcer, the bump and run certainly made for more exciting commentary. Ernie, I concur, because as a radio show host, the bump and run makes for some great conversation. Another good listener, longtime follower of the show, and a lot of roots with New England modified racing scene, Jared Echo chimed in, and his dad, you may remember him, was a writer for Speedway Scene newspaper way back in the day. And he brought up a good point here as well that I want to bring into the discussion on this one. Nasty has got a reputation. He's known for using the front bumper and move Pollard out of the way. No way, he shouldn't have done that. However, in Jared's words, he brings up a good point, because I was not at Pensacola. I didn't see the race. Neither was Jared. We readily admit that. Don't use a bumper unless you're being blatantly blocked or using more than one lane. The bump and run is a tactic of the lesser talented, yes, due to being too lazy to make legitimate pass on a competitor. 100% an agreement on that. And if you are trying to pass someone and you're doing it clean, and they block you, mirror drive you all over the track, now you can use the bumper. Now take it to them. Now move it out of the way. And that's what I was trying to find out. Was Bubba Pollard blocking, or was Stephen Nassie just being a bulldozer? He wasn't, I wasn't there. Jared wasn't there. But we did see the last lap of the race, and I wondered what occurred before that. As most people, etiquette comes in. We chime in with our New England roots, and I saw so many guys starting 18th, 16th, 17th in a 30-lap feature come to the front in the top 5 and win, and they just passed. They didn't use the bumper. They didn't knock guys out of the way. That's how I do it. Another, Joe Pelham was great and chimed in with this, as he talked about the factor of spotters. I didn't even think about this. It's a huge factor of mirror driving. A great quote from Pelham. Let's use it. Another factor is the spotters, as I said, quote, "If you scan these nitwits, these are driving the cars from the spotter stand, which also plays a factor in having to move someone, as I had mentioned. Easier than I can think of a few races with Teddy Christopher, when he's come over the radio with some pretty colorful dialogue about eyes in the mirror and blocking. My mother can whistle a car down into a turn and wreck. You just does not take talent to do so. Just the mindset with today's steering wheel holders." Yeah, I agree. I didn't even think about that, as guys are mirror driving and blocking all over the place. But there's radio racing going on in their heads. The spotters are telling guys inside, outside, where he's coming up on them. So you don't even have to look in the mirror. You can't, as Teddy Christopher talked about, looking in the mirror of the car in front of him. He could see the mirror eyes. The guys looking in the mirror more than they were looking out of the front of the car, and just running Teddy all over the track on a, at an event like Stafford or Thompson in a SK or a modified. It's but we have spotters in 4-cylinders and street stocks and late models. who is it? Pelham says, it's so pathetic today you have spotters for iRacing. Yep, iRacing. Can't fix stupid. Now here's some more as Joe picks some great words about the late Teddy Christopher. Having worked with one of the best, TC, from Joe Pelham, I can tell you how many times he'd get wound up because the leader or guy in front of him kept his eyes on the mirror more than running the line. Teddy was no saint by any means, but there are situations when you need to do something if you can't pick a lane. Teddy Christopher had the 3-tap rule. First tap, I'm here, I want by. Second tap, pick a lane. Third tap, I picked it for you. You should always give the guy a lane. If you're, I believe in passing a guy clean. I don't believe in the bump and run unless they are viciously blocking you or radio driving you, running you all over the track. Then absolutely, front bumper to the rear bumper is fair game. That's what I tried to find out. Was no one's really sure. Was Pollard blocking? I don't know. NASA's got a reputation for using that front bumper and not, not being too shy about it. Our good friend Paul McKeever also chimed in. For the life of me, I can't ever see Richie Evans pulling off a move like that. Yes, Evans, the king of the modifieds, never was known for something like this. Back in, when I grew up, these guys, those modified greats from yesteryear, they were just a different breed. They raced, and there was a lot of honor and etiquette there that I remember so much. We're thinking of Jeff Bonine, we're thinking of Ronnie Bouchard, we're thinking of Bugsy Stevens and Freddie DeCero, and the way the guys just raced. They just raced hard. There was no radios back then. There were no spotters. They just drove. Racing was a much dangerous game. They knew that if there was a crash, there was a higher sense of injury. Most guys built their own cars. They respected the money and the effort and all the energy that was put into building a car. And naturally, this discussion all comes back to Bugsy Stevens and the chapter on him in the sport, or in his book, Bugsy. He talks about the great quote, well, I did what I had to do. No, you did what you wanted to do, not what you had to do. There's even some sanctioning bodies and tracks that want to pull that section out of that book from Bugsy and put it in their rule book. The fact that it was Nassie was penalized on Saturday night for the bump and run don't bother me a bit. I think it should be done more often. But, of course, it is a judgment call because I'm going to leave that little gap there for blocking and mirror driving, which I'm not really sure if that was happening or not. If I was at Pensacola, I could be a better judge of it. If I had paid for the pay-per-view coverage and watched the whole race, which I did not, that would be more of a take too. But it's tough to say bump and run, candy-ass move, unless you're blocking, in which case bumper is fair game. Stay tuned because every couple of weeks this topic comes up, and it's always beat up pretty good here on Speedway Report. Everybody, thank you so much for the commentary on social media this week. It was interesting to read everybody's opinion on this. Most of the audience of this show is pretty much, from what I can see, against the bump and run. We're not a fan of it. We're old schoolers. We grew up when guys could pass, guys could race, and we got the spoiled little rich kids now. I don't think they work on their own stuff. Daddy pays for it, and they're bulldozers and not guys out of the way. There's different variations of that, but you just see it too often. Bump and run, to me, no way to win a race. Let's jump the pond all the way, and let's go to Bahrain in the Middle East for this Formula One race yesterday. Wow. If you missed this, gosh, you missed a dandy. First, let's begin. Let's back up our time machine here a little bit. Lewis Hamilton tested positive for COVID, or the coronavirus, last week for Mercedes. So we moved George Russell out of the bottom feeder, so to speak, Mercedes car, into Hamilton's car for this race. Wow, what a drive Russell put on. Valtteri Bottas and his teammate Mercedes won the pole. Russell, with a great start, actually got the lead of the race at the beginning of it. Bottas dropped back, and Russell just drove a masterful race. However, the team, Mercedes, definitely let him down. They came in and they did a tire stack. at one point in the race behind a virtual safety car with George Russell and then Valtteri Bottas right behind him. They did a quick four, and then boom, another quick four change, and the tires somehow got messed up. Set to set, car to car, which in F1 you can't do, but there was just a bad communication there. On Mercedes, of all folks that tend to run at the front row of the pack, then run 1-2 and dominate the podium, just wasn't to be for the tire changes yesterday. And Russell gave this fantastic drive, and by calculations, he looked like he was going to catch leader Sergio Perez late in the going, but he either had a puncture or had to stop for late tires and dropped him out of the top 5 again. He dug hard and was able to get back into points, back into the top 10 just there. But it was the first points he ever scored in a Formula One race. And it could have come with a legit shot at winning the race or at the very minimum a podium. Just drove a career day, this grandiose opportunity. Terrible for Lewis Hamilton to be diagnosed like this. A golden opportunity for George Russell. He handled himself quite well. And as Hamilton even said on social media following the race, Russell's drive was very, very impressive. But even more so was Russell's composure after the race when he had a possible win, his first ever championship points in F1, finished with a 9th. He still handled himself with his chin up and gave a good interview after the race. And then with that tire mess up, Valtteri Bottas was left on older tire. He had to put older tires back onto the car, and he was a sitting duck, and he finished about 8th or so, and I think Russell's in 9th. So this very, very adventurous day for Mercedes, winding up 8th and 9th. In the Formula One race at Bahrain, which they just used a shorter circuit from the previous week's race on the same circuit, as F1 has been doing double duty at the same tracks to try to get in some events. They're going to have their season finale this week coming up in Abu Dhabi. We'll wind up with 17 concluded events in 2020 in spite of the pandemic around the world. That's not bad. That's pretty good. I know the U.S. Grand Prix was canceled, as several spots around the world, they just didn't happen. But 17 races, not too shabby. Romain Grosjean, we did not have a show last week. I certainly want to touch on him. If you can find, when you probably can online, there's a spectacular interview with Grosjean following his crash the week before, that fireball that he was able to literally crawl out of, that we all thought the worst. Romain gives a play-by-play of what it was like with on track, through the crash, through the barrier, into the flames, and getting out of the car. And all total, they did the math on this, Sky Sports did, that he was in the fire for 28 seconds. But it took Romain about 5 minutes to describe this step by step by step. His mind and his memory are intact. If you can go online, go to YouTube or somewhere, and try to find this interview, this sit-down that Grosjean did with Martin Brundle, as a matter of fact. It aired on Sky Sports in the pre-race for yesterday's Bahrain Grand Prix. Absolutely 100% worth your time to go find this interview. He gives the crisp, sharp recollection of every moment from the start of the race, on track, to the crash, to the wall, and then when he's in the fire, what he did, what he went through, what was going through his mind. So slow in slow motion, yet in real time, very, very quickly, as we feared for his life. Fascinating stuff on the psychology end of auto racing, as he was trapped in that fireball and then emerged. He'll live to race another day, possibly. He was going to step away from F1 at the end of the year with Haas. He will not run the race in Abu Dhabi this coming week. However, he would really rather that not be his farewell to Formula One racing. So we'll see if he gets a chance somehow to complete his career, maybe with one more shot, one more race somewhere. But just a fantastic story that came out of Bahrain this week. The podium there, Sergio Perez winning the race, Esteban Ocon in second, Lance Stroll in third, Racing Point had 2 on the podium. That's the first time in the history of Racing Point's existence that they've had 2 drivers on the podium, with Perez and Stroll both scoring, well, able to spray the champagne yesterday. So just when we look at these F1 races and we look for Mercedes to just run away and make them 1-2, well, yeah, that happens sometimes. However, man, what a show yesterday and how many stories. And even this, great news, Mick Schumacher, Michael's son, was crowned the F2 champion over the weekend and will be moving to Haas's F1 program in 2021. So we will have a Schumacher back on the grid in 2021. Wow, that's going to be great to have the Schumacher name back there again. Can do nothing but be a positive for Formula One racing. Just a bit about IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Donald Davidson, Indy 500 historian for the IMS Museum, will be retiring at the end of this year. Came native from England, came to America, I believe, in 1964 or so. Just an amazing historian. I had a chance to talk with him and actually MC an event up at the Speedway one year where he gave some remarks. It was a pleasure to be on stage with him and introduce him. Donald Davidson, if you can find anything out about the Speedway that he doesn't know, I'd be impressed, because he can pull stats out of everywhere about the Indy 500. So best wishes, Donald Davidson, as you sail off into the sunset. As our Speedway Report Racer of the Week, tribute to Dave Despain and Motor Week Illustrated. Man, we talked about a lot of guys, even the racing down at the Snowball Derby and in this Formula One race. I had to sit on it for a little bit. The guts, the gumption, who had the best drive, who had that heart, the eye of the tiger. I'm going to give it to the Mercedes fill-in driver. George Russell is going to be our Speedway Report Racer of the Week. It's probably a bigger award than actually the top 10 at Bahrain, I'm sure. Russell is watching with bated breath that he finally won our Racer of the Week award. In between our broadcasts, keep up on the world of racing with SpeedwayReport.com. We've got all of our shows archived there if you'd like any history. On social media, we were on Facebook at Racers Reunion and, well, at Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds. On Twitter at Speedway Pat and at Speedway Report, and at RacersReunion.com in the forum. Like I said at the top of the show, YouTube. That's where we're at all of the time. Big thanks to everyone on the Facebook Live discussion. It's over there. I'm going to get to you guys shortly. I want to thank all of the military past and present for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including the simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free, and a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report on this Pearl Harbor Day 2020, you take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You've been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and follow me on Twitter at Speedway Pat. Now, on the Drag Racing List Facebook page, coming up in a few minutes, about 6 minutes from now, will be Drag List Live. So head on over to Drag Racing List on Facebook. Bill Pratt and John Bachman will take you through the next hour. Now, I'll be back live here on Facebook Monday, December the 14th, with all the news and headlines from the F1 finale in Abu Dhabi and plenty of off-season heat. Thanks for watching. You take care of yourselves and take care of each other. I'll see you all next week.